welcome back to Threads. This is our third episode. I'm Kamal Jain, your host today, and we've just finished up a segment with Lydia Sisson of Mill City Grows, so hopefully you've enjoyed that and you're thinking about community gardening and growing some food, or just going out and volunteering and helping. Now there's something else that's new in the community here in Lowell that's really exciting, and in a way it's new but it's old. It's bringing us back to the origins of Lowell and from the days of Milltown. And we've got John Noto here. John is a scientist, among other things, who lives right here in downtown Lowell. And you're actually one of three people, including myself, who's working on an interesting project to create something called Lowell Makes. And Lowell Makes is it's
a makerspace.
Okay.
Also a community workshop. If you have any familiarity with the military bases around the world, there's something called a hobby shop, which is, again, a community-supported workshop where you can come and do woodworking or metalworking, or hopefully we'll bring in some more modern technologies, for example, robotics, and hopefully 3D printing as well. So this would be, or if you wanted to come in and fix something, or try and invent something, or just make game pieces for a Lego set or something, you could come and do it. No knowledge required.
Okay, but of course, one of the goals, and I think we've discussed this before, one of the goals of the Makerspace, of course, is to be a center of education and collaboration.
Absolutely,
right?
Collaborative education, right, as opposed to sort of a formal school-type education. Obviously we would have people come in and host and teach, workshops, but they would be hands-on, workshops. Also, there would be collaborative education between different members of the Makerspace. Someone, might have expertise in carpentry, and they could teach other people how to do some woodworking technique. So it's an adjunct to the more formal education that's available.
So how does this is clearly something new in the city of Lowell. We don't have a makerspace. Later on we'll be showing a little segment of when we went up to Nashua to see a real makerspace, to see MakeIt Labs. They started here in Lowell. They've moved on, and we'll definitely enjoy talking about them. But so how does the community engage with something like Lowell Makes, with this new makerspace, and what is the value and benefit to the community? I mean, great, I can get an education, but I mean, I could go take a cooking class at La Boniche or something as well. What's different about this, and how does the average resident of the city of Lowell look at this as fitting into the things that the city has to offer?
Well, I mean, I think, we've seen makerspaces pop up ever since Make Magazine started talking about it, and Make Magazine was founded. There's, of course, the pioneering makerspace of Artisan Asylum in Somerville, and then MakeIt Labs, which started here, as you said, and went to Nashua. I mean, the reality is, it's getting harder to sort of do things yourself, right? I mean, when I was growing up, my father and I would work on our cars, and we would fix stuff. I built a lot of things when I was a kid. Most of them didn't work, but at least I tried to build stuff. Right. And I think a lot of that has gone away. I mean, it's almost impossible to really work on your car anymore. You need special tools, special technology. So the idea is as we and this ties in well with the sort of the local farming, right? As we want more contact with the things that we consume, one way to do that is to actually make some of the stuff that you need. So and also in addressing the idea of a disposable society where we throw out so much stuff when it breaks. Well, I mean, if you had access to a 3D printer, you could come in and build that replacement plastic part, or you could instead of having to go to China to get a replacement gasket for your dishwasher, you could work with someone to fix your dishwasher locally. I mean, that's the idea. So it's really just expands the options of choice for individual Lowellians.
So one of the ways I certainly like to think about the makerspace we're working on is, with the farming, for example, one of the big things is where it came from, who produced your food. And in this case, you're actually going to understand how things work.
Oh, exactly.
Right, so you now have this gadget in your house or in your life somehow, and it's no longer some mysterious object that somehow magically teleported itself here from some factory in China. It's something that someone can explain to you what it does, how it works, how it might go wrong, and how it could be improved.
Right.
And you as an end user, and this is one of the things that we've talked about that I love, the idea of hacking or modifying or modding stuff. You go to the store and you buy something and you say, well, it is what it is. maybe it breaks, I can repair it, but also maybe it's not quite exactly what I need. I can change it to meet my needs even better.
Exactly.
Or to do its job better.
Right.
And that's something that we haven't had the ability for the common person to do in generations, right? Since mass production took over.
I think it's been ever harder, you know, and as most of our, you know, we consume more than ever, but our production has moved to Asia. So you know, it's almost impossible to take apart a modern cell phone and actually put it back together again. So, yeah, I mean, any ability that we can bring to the community to take more ownership of your life, of the things that you do, is I think a very powerful thing.
So let's suppose, you know, I'm a young person, I'm in high school, I'm at Lowell High, or I'm going to, you know, Lowell Tech, you know, Lowell Folk.
Sure.
Why might I want to look into the makerspace, and how approachable this is going to be for someone who may be 16, 18 years old, 20 years old, maybe they're in college at the university here or at Middlesex, versus someone who's maybe an older person or somewhere in the middle. There's quite a, obviously we have the full age range here in the city. Who's going to find this appealing and why? Well,
I think if you are, well, I mean, obviously insurance will dictate a different model if you're below 18. If you're above 18, if you're a college student, right? Now, sure, at UMass Lowell, you have access to all sorts of great equipment, great machine shops, great technology. But as someone who started a company right out of college, I know that once you leave, all that goes away. Right? I mean, it's great that you can use it as a student, but the minute you're not a student, you know, the wall goes up, and it's really hard for you to do that. So let's say, you know, you're an 18-year-old or 20-year-old kid. You have an idea for a product and you want to prototype it. Well, you know, you could try to go back to the university and do it, or you could just come over and you could pay a fee and you could prototype it. And we're gonna really strive to work with the small businesses around Lowell in the Merrimack Valley, and probably the Small Business Association of New England, to bring in you know the best software we can, sort of you know really good 3D printing technology, some machine you know more traditional machines like Bridgeport milling and lathing machines. So you would have access to this without sort of the you know the state imposed overhead at UMass Lowell. And it would be simply on a pay, you know, you pay a fee, you become a member, you know, kind of like a gym membership or the YMCA. It's sort of the YMCA of making stuff. And once you're a member, you can come in, you get trained, you can use any of the equipment you want. You could prototype something for a new business. Let's say you have a small business and you want to try out a new product, right? If you were to go to China and say, I need, you know, a short run of a plastic product, it costs you a fortune, right? But if you come in here, you could do a short run 3D printed for not a lot of money and just see how the product works. I mean, so that's really our goal. I mean, our goal is not just for individuals, but hopefully as we expand, you know, people will come in with their ideas, explore their ideas in the makerspace, and the best ideas will actually leave. And they'll go and they'll create companies, or they'll add value to companies in other ways.
So they're boosting the economy, creating jobs.
All that good stuff.
All that good stuff. So, you know, one of the things that comes up here in the city sometimes is, you know, sort of there's a lot of social services and other types of agencies that really rely upon state, you know, and federal funding, some of it conduited through the city. Is this going to be another thing that's sort of competing with the same types of funding, so that if, you know, if it's a UTech or a CTI that we're, you know, that Lowell Makes is also now in this pool of people saying, hey, and I'd like some money too? Or
well, I mean, you know, all money is green, right? All cash is green. We're not going to turn down any government money. But we've talked to state people and city people, and they're all very supportive, but they've all made very clear that there's really not a lot of money available. So the reality is this has to be member supported. So our goal is to find a core group of 20, 30, 40 people and who will be paying a monthly membership fee for access to the shared workspace, and they can and that will be the nucleus that will hopefully grow over time. So it has to be member supported. This is not going to be, you know, another group that exists solely to write grants to get government money.
Okay, well that certainly sounds promising. And you know,
it does sound good. I hope we can make it work.
And we've had one public meeting so far, and actually right here at LTC, and it's been great. We're working with.
Actually, that meeting was overwhelming. I honestly, I was expecting about half the number of people who showed up. We had, I think, 81 people on the mailing list. 70 people showed up, and it was you know, I was totally overwhelmed by that support. So that was amazing. So clearly, there's an interest and a demand for something like this.
Right, and I'll tell you, you know, if you remember the meeting, the age range and diversity of the people that were there, the backgrounds, you know, whether they were more artistic or more, you know, hey, I've got machine background and I'm interested in doing more of that, and the microcontrollers, and some of the really advanced
robotic stuff, you know.
And how this is all being tied together now, too, with the idea of putting little embeddable microcontrollers inside clothing so that it can actually
isn't that fascinating?
Smart clothing.
I know, smart clothing. You know, it's like those Nike sneakers with the sensors in it, you know, and I mean, the future is wide open, really, and so any place I think where we can get people with ideas to come in and play with technology, especially with all the varied talents in that meeting. I mean, I think only good things can come out of that.
You know, we're talking about a membership-based model,
right?
And as you know, not that long ago, just a few weeks ago, you and Eric Sack and I, right? So Eric is the director of Technologistics here at LTC.
Yeah.
The three of us are the kind of the founders, if you will, the co-collaborators behind Lowell Makes. We went up to MakeIt Labs in Nashua. And MakeIt Labs started here in Lowell over on Tanner Street in a very small space, and very, very quickly they immediately realized, oh, we don't have enough space.
That's
and so as they started searching around, they wound up moving to Nashua, and they're very happy where they are. And you got a chance to spend some time wandering around, you know,
yes, that's
area.
right. You'll see in the clip, Kamal did the interview with Christian, and Eric was behind the camera. And I kind of left and wandered around the area that they didn't want to put on camera, and it was fascinating. You know, they have about 6,000 square feet. About 5,000 square feet of that is what they call their dirty space, which is basically a big cement floored warehouse full of all sorts of machinery. They have a car lift, hydraulic car lift for automotive work. They have a plasma cutter. And actually, when you were filming, I'd walked over and Paul had showed me the plasma cutter.
The CNC controlled plasma cutter?
Yes,
That one?
yes.
Yeah, that was pretty
and that
exciting.
was amazing. Just to give you a quick description, you know when you make cookies, sugar cookies, and you have that cutter, and you cut out, you know, Christmas tree shaped sugar cookies. You can do that, except the plasma cutter does it out of solid steel. So you put down a steel plate, and you load up in this little laptop the shape that you want. And it'll come down and with a jet of plasma cut out steel plate in any shape you want. Fascinating piece of equipment.
Well, unfortunately, we weren't able to get footage of that for various reasons.
Yeah.
And but what we do have, we're going to roll into a little video clip. It's probably 4 or 5 minutes long. And we actually went up there, and I had the opportunity to interview Christian St. Cyr. And Christian is one of their board members, and he's actually originally from Lowell. So he has a great love for Lowell, and Paul Harden, who's one of their board members, also very supportive. He came to our meeting.
Yes, that's right.
And so it's really exciting to see the community and the way that there's the support network. So right now, folks, we'd like you to watch this video, and we'll come back in a few minutes, and we'll talk about it a little bit. So here you go. Here's MakeIt Labs in Nashua, New Hampshire, and myself interviewing Christian St. Cyr, who's a board member at MakeIt Labs. Hi, this is Kamal Jain. I'm at MakeIt Labs in Nashua, New Hampshire. I'm really excited to be here. We've come up with Eric and some others from the LTC crew, and we're doing a little segment for Threads. That's the name of the show that we're doing in Lowell, and we're all interests in the city of Lowell. And as you know, Christian, we're, well, I should say this is Christian St. Cyr, you know, director and board member here at MakeIt Labs, from Lowell originally,
yes,
correct?
Originally, all my life.
And so we're doing this show where we want to get general interest of everything going on in the city of Lowell. And, you know, we came to you, we met Adam a few weeks ago. We're looking to create a makerspace in Lowell, much like the idea of a makerspace or hackerspace you have here in Nashua. So tell us a little bit about, you know, how you got involved. How did how did MakeIt Labs come to be?
So as you know, we started in Lowell. So we actually started in a small contractor bay in Lowell.
Okay.
Right around Target and Plain Street kind of
sure,
area. So we started there. I was active in the Boston community and was looking around for local spaces and stumbled across the Lowell space.
Okay.
Said, there's a makerspace in my town, and so I went down and visited, and there was only about maybe 12 members or so at that time. And quickly, over the course of a month or so, over that winter, we really outgrew that space. So we started looking for new space, and we found the space in Nashua.
Okay.
So we have 6,000 square feet here. When we decided to move, we formed a non-stocking corporation to to be more nonprofit.
Yeah.
And I joined as a board member during that time. So we needed 5 board members, and I joined.
So it's pretty exciting to see that much growth, right? You showed up, and all of a sudden, hey, a month later, you guys were out of space.
Yeah, it really
Lowell.
quickly. There was maybe 7 or 12, and then we moved, and we're up to about 50 members now at this point.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, here we are. I mean, it's a Monday evening, and there's over a dozen folks here, you know, kind of milling about, doing different things. Well, milling, no pun intended. There may be milling going on out back.
There may be. So what we like to do on open house nights is we have people come in who've never been to the space before, who have just heard about the space, and we give them a tour, show them around, show them various equipment. We talk about classes and talk about membership levels, and more often than not, we just end up hanging out and we talk about what projects they're interested in, what kind of skill set, what kind of background they have, what kind of skills they're interested in learning, and what projects they're working on at the moment.
Yeah, now so I guess tell me kind of like what your top most favorite activities are here that people like to do, and how has that evolved in the time you've been involved the last couple years or so?
So we get a lot of electronics work, so projects like Arduino, which is a small microcontroller platform that people play with, a lot of kind of hardware fix-it things that are electronics related, and then we get also metalworking. So welding is very popular. We have a class that sells out every month for welding. We also have various machine tools. So we have a Bridgeport mill, and we have lathes. So there's classes for that as well, and people are really excited to do that. We also have a car lift, so people do automotive maintenance as well. So those are kind of the major things that people are interested in. So.
Okay, and have you seen like directions you guys are heading in based on what your members and people in the community are saying? Hey, it'd be really cool if you had X.
I think people come in with a pretty good idea of what they're interested in, and usually it matches pretty well with what we're doing. Usually it's electronics, like I said, and usually it's more mechanically related. So we have a lot of members that are actually electrical engineers by day or mechanical engineers by day, and those are it's really interesting. We see electrical engineers kind of want to hack on physical things. They kind of want to learn welding, and then we actually see mechanical engineers coming in and they kind of want to play with electronics. But everyone helping out each other and kind of learning off of each other. So.
Now, just I guess in short, if you were to talk to the people of Lowell who might be watching the show and they're hearing about Lowell Makes, that's a show that it's the name of the space that we're creating. What might you tell them? What their questions if they're going to see the show before they come down and visit with us, come to an open house we might host or a public meeting we're doing. We're hoping to get launched this year. That's our plan. Maybe even this summer, but we'll see. As you know, it's a process. Find space to get equipment and get people together. What would be their reason? Why would they care about a makerspace, and why, we obviously have artist studios in Lowell, as you know, Western Ave and others.
So the reason our space started, and the reason a lot of spaces like this will begin, is that you can't weld in your bathtub. So people are moving into loft apartments, these great lofts in Lowell, right? And you don't have a garage. You live on the 6th floor, and you don't have a space to do woodworking or mess about with things. So our space originally started because someone wanted to weld.
Okay.
A lot of college students have access to shops. We have all these great shops in UMass Lowell that students are coming out of, and they don't have access to those things anymore when they get jobs. So the things that people might be interested in when they come in is what projects what did they have access to before, or what do they want access to, and what projects are they interested in working on. So the equipment that they would want to see in a space is really based around that. It's based around what projects they're interested in doing. What equipment do people that they know already have, and what can they bring into a space like ours? Our space has a lot of equipment that's just used. It's not being used, so it's in people's spaces.
Right.
And it gets brought into a space like this.
Right, so then it gets some use.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that benefits the whole community. And then maybe the donor can come in and use it. Right?
Yeah, so we want to do a survey, kind of the equipment that's around you and that's not being in use, and kind of start to bring it into the larger community. Right,
yeah. I mean, I happened to move to Lowell now a little over 9 years ago. I moved from a single-family home in a suburb into the city into a two-family home, and I have no place for a lot of my tools and equipment, and so I'm going to be donating some of that to the space.
Absolutely.
And it'll be nice to be able to use that stuff. Right, right now it's like, the spiders are not going to be happy.
Right, right. And I think a lot of people like to see their equipment get used. So they may have stuff sitting in storage. We have all these storage spaces that people are shoving stuff into, and sometimes that's equipment. And people like to see their things get used. So what we usually do is we bring in equipment, but if something gets broken, we make sure that it gets fixed. But people like to see their stuff get get bigger use.
Now, you mentioned earlier, like we saw the go-kart out there, how
Yes.
there was the charter school in Tingsboro, they got involved
Yes.
in working with that. Are there other schools and institutions of learning or businesses that have really found this an exciting venue for their employees?
I think homeschoolers have really found it really interesting. So when you have kids that are interested in these kinds of topics, I think homeschool parents find it hard to find curricula for really technical subjects. So we've had people come in. Usually, what we do is we have a parent come in as a member, and they can bring in their young child.
So when you took us on a tour earlier, we got to see it, which was great. Thanks.
Yes.
You know, we got to see some really cool machines, including that CNC plasma cutter.
Right.
Just kind of walking through with the things we saw. We saw this really interesting looking go-kart. And you mentioned the history of that. Could you maybe just recount the history of the go-kart and how it is that it's still here?
So before we even opened in this space, we had a charter school come in, Innovation Academy in Tingsboro, so they're local. Before we had even opened up the space to general membership use, they were interested in bringing the kids in and learning about welding and cutting and kind of painting and finishing and all these mechanical techniques. So what they did, they went on Craigslist and they bought parts for go-karts. They brought all the scrap parts in, kind of cut things down, and they actually had 40 students or so and 5 teachers.
Wow.
And they had 2 teams actually get go-karts out the door. And they welded, they cut, they grinded things. So all the tools that we have back there, they were able to learn and use. We had some of our board members help with that and teach the kids welding and grinding and all those techniques. So that was a really positive experience that we had.
So there's the school. Have you maintained a relationship with the school or people from the school?
We've maintained a relationship with some of the students. So some of the students have actually come in and used the space after the fact.
That's great.
Really
so they have that continuum, like you talked about with UMass Lowell, for example.
Right.
You might be a student there and you've got a shop.
Right.
You graduated, now you don't have access to the shop.
So we have some of the teachers check in every once in a while. I think they're looking into doing some more classes, and they always check in with us, and it's a great opportunity.
Well, now, Christian, now you're seeing kind of more maker spaces starting to pop up, right? There's the Portsmouth folks, the Seacoast Robotics, and the other place that got together. We're doing our thing in Lowell. There's Artisans Asylum in Somerville. I think there might be 1 or 2 others kicking around. Where do you see this network growing of people like, hey, we don't have that activity here.
Right.
Why don't you head up there and we can work something out?
So one of the things we've worked with Portsmouth Makerspace is actually a passport kind of policy. So what we've done with them is kind of figured out the nitty-gritty of membership and said, if you're a member here, you're a member there, essentially. So if they have a piece of equipment that you're interested in using, go up there, talk about that you're a member here, provide them your membership details. We've figured out all that, and that we can kind of share membership rights. So that's been really positive. I think that was kind of one of the first steps up in this area that we've been able to do that. And we've had people exercise it a few times. So that's really interesting. One of the important things about these spaces is they're kind of disconnected by choice. They're not a franchise, right? So they're not all under the same moniker. Every space runs differently. So every space kind of has to communicate with each other and build those kind of relationships. But there is actually a passport. I spoke about passports. There actually is a physical passport called a hackerspace passport. So a lot of spaces, including us, have stamps.
Okay.
And you actually get a hackerspace passport, and on the front of it is an embossed logo with a soldering iron. And then you open it up, and it actually has space for you to stamp different spaces. So when we go to events like Maker Faire, all the spaces have stamps.
Right.
And
you can kind of show off your passport.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's really cool. So. Education clearly is a big part of this with the classes. You mentioned earlier that your welding classes are sold out every month and other things. Do you have more classes coming online pretty regularly?
Yes. Yeah, so I'll go over some of the classes quickly. We have our Arduino class, which is that cheap microcontroller platform. We have electronics courses, so you can actually solder up a circuit and actually play with it. I think it's a My Simon game with LEDs and everything. We have various machining classes, so we have a mill class and a lathe class. We have welding. We have some automotive repair. We also have a really cool class that's kind of, we've had it once or twice, and it's called soft circuits. So what that actually is we're taking sewable electronics, so LEDs, and actually this microcontroller platform, and people are able to put it onto fabric and use conductive thread to then make pieces that are kind of either interactive or just for display. I'm really excited about that kind of stuff, and that's one of my favorite classes.
So we have something new in Lowell, actually a fashion makerspace.
Okay.
that just opened downtown on Merrimack Street. Yep. Diana Colantino, who was with the Revolving Museum, she's doing this thing now. I don't know if you know Diana.
No, the Revolving Museum is a great place.
So, well, they closed last year. And so there's Diana and other people, talent and people interested. So she's actually interested in collaborating with us for some of the same ideas you talked about. We said, all right, we're going to have the techno people, and you're going to have the fashion, textile, leather people. And there's times when they overlap. You want to integrate some electronics into your clothing.
Yeah, we actually considered having a whole what's called fiber arts kind of space. Unfortunately, one of the problems you run into these spaces is if it's a really technically oriented space, you have diversity issues. So we actually have way more men than girls. We do have females that come in, but it's one of the issues of these kind of spaces. And bridging that gap is really interesting. When we have this soft circuits class, we have usually it's half and half, and people really have a good time with that. So I will send my teacher your way into that.
Okay, yeah, and I'd love to introduce them to to Diana and just see the ecosystem. But I mean, you guys aren't that far up the road.
No,
I certainly would love to be able to go back and forth and exchange talent, or if you're going to teach a class, maybe we can borrow an instructor or vice versa.
Absolutely.
One last question, and then maybe you can make a final comment. Sure. Have you had any economic activity generating out of the things that go on here? Like, are people maybe augmenting a business or starting a business or saving money or doing something?
Sure. One of our board members who actually started with us built a kit robotics company. So he actually made these little robots made out of laser cut plastic. That had 6 legs, which is called a hexapod. Yeah. So it actually walks on the legs. He started a Kickstarter, raised $200,000, and started a company. He has since moved to the Somerville area and has been successful. So he left his job and made a maker business.
That's huge.
I know in some of the other spaces that has been much more popular, and it's really interesting to see that kind of growth come out of these kind of spaces. So.
Christian, I can't thank you enough for making the time here at MakeIt Labs to talk to us about the experience of makerspaces and MakeIt Labs and your own personal experience. Now, to your fellow Lowellians or former Lowellians, your old hometown, any comments or thoughts to share about your own makerspace and the movement in general that you want to talk to the viewers about? That'd be great.
Absolutely. So Lowell is a place that's been built on art and innovation, and I would really encourage anyone who's interested in making, hacking, playing with anything that they don't have the knowledge of already, but are interested in doing, or anybody who's interested in hacking, who has that project list, a mile long that hasn't gotten anything yet. Seek out the people who are interested in making a space near you. Come visit our space, see how it's run, see what we have available, and build that space. You need to find the people who are passionate about it and stay on them to make a space that you can all enjoy. That's it.
Yeah, I guess just in closing, you're with MakeIt Labs. Yes. The website is makeitlabs.com.
Correct.
And it's just been really great, and thank you so much.
Thank you,
Christian. Been
Thanks
great.
For coming.
Welcome back to the third episode of Lowell Threads here, and we're on with Lowell Makes co-founder John Noto, and so hopefully you enjoyed the segment just now where we saw Christian St. Cyr, one of the board members of MakeIt Labs in Nashua, New Hampshire, originally started here in Lowell. They're now in Nashua, talking about what they're doing there, the exciting community and technologies and things that are happening on there, and the business ideas and the actual economic benefit that's derived from what they've done there, where like actual businesses have formed and spun out. So John, kind of share some of your highlights of what we learned in Nashua, as well as how some of this is going to apply to Lowell.
Sure. I mean, it was fascinating. I mean, in fact, one of the first things you notice when you walk in is there was several people on benches, work benches, opening up and working on broken LCD monitors. We all have these flat screen monitors for our computers, and when they break, at least in my business, we typically throw them out. But they have this little cottage industry where you can go up there and they will teach you how to repair them. And they said something like 3/4 are actually fully repairable, easily repairable. And so that ties right in with the idea of fixing, repairing, and reusing stuff, right? I mean, now the next time in my business anyway, the next time an LCD monitor fails, I'm not going to so quickly throw it out.
You're going to drive it up to Nashua,
I'll take it up to Nashua,
over to Lowell Makes,
or maybe hopefully over to Lowell Makes. So
yeah, that's great. I mean, in the city, obviously, the solid waste and recycling department here in the city has gotten very, progressive about making sure that people have composting bins, doing curbside recycling in many of the neighborhoods, not all of them throughout the city. So this really ties into the idea of keeping electronics out of recycling or landfills,
Sure.
saving money, reusing things, and that's something that I think really was a major part of American culture until just a couple of decades ago, or a few decades ago, where we fixed things, we repaired things, we reused them. You'd see repair shops around.
That's right.
Now, how often do you see them active? They're all dying because everyone just go to the big box store and buy
go to Best Buy, buy the new monitor,
Right, especially around the Super Bowl, it's a great time to buy a new one. So we're really, looking at creating an endeavor where people are going to be able to learn new skills, collaborate on learning skills, brainstorming on projects. Anything that you want to share with folks, like maybe our website and some other stuff
sure,
before
absolutely,
we wrap
absolutely.
up in the next minute or so?
Definitely. Please check out lowellmakes.com. Just spell, type it out the way it sounds. Lowellmakes.com. We have a Facebook page, and we're on Twitter, and every other.
And we're on meetup.com.
Meetup.com. And please stay tuned for more information. We'll hopefully be incorporating in the next few weeks, and then have another meeting sometime early summer.
Super, and for Lowellians, we're actually talking to folks over at the Pollard Library, so they're very excited about
yes, we'll be
Chelmsford Public Library.
Right,
we're doing
right.
the library
We're
tour.
going to do a library tour, so we'll give little presentations at local libraries in case you missed the big meeting.
Well, that's great. Well, that was John Noto and Lowell Makes talking about a makerspace here in the city of Lowell. John, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions, again, go to lowellmakes.com. You can email info@lowellmakes.com, and yeah, that's great.